So hello and welcome. This is Erica Glessing, and you're joining me on the Erica Glessing Show, where you receive 8 minutes of daily inspiration for entrepreneurs and light workers. And my next guest is both. I'm very grateful to have her with me on the show today. And then she's actually on her way to the West Coast, coming to California for a nice class coming up real soon. So we'll find out more about that as we get into the call. So welcome, Danielle Varanda. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm just like so tickled that this showed up, Erica. Thanks so much for inviting me to this talk.
Tell me a little bit about, like, if you look at, let's just do this. I don't think I've even asked this on this entire show this year. Tell me a little bit about the relationship between like body and business and body and entrepreneur, because I don't think we ever really talk about that much.
That's a great question. Yeah, and I've been working on bodies for, oh my gosh, over 30 years. And so it's always been part of my business, but it can show up in all kinds of different ways. I've been an esthetician for over 30 years and have always enjoyed doing transformation on bodies. And as I continue to explore and started working with the access consciousness body processes and clearings and delving into that, now what I like to say is I used to say that I talk to bodies, but actually what's more accurate is bodies talk to me. So bodies have, of course, they're a sensory organ, but they're always giving us information and awareness. And more often than not, we tend to not pay attention to that. So just no matter what you do, what kind of business you're in, if you're willing to start asking your body questions, anything from what would it like to do today? What would it like to create in business? What would it like to wear? What would it like to eat? It'll start to communicate with you. And every time you do choose to give your body what it would like, it just creates more, it gets more happy, and you then become like a beacon for others that are just attracted to you in the sense of, ooh, I want to connect with you. I want to work with you. I want to do business with you. And it can show up in all kinds of ways.
You know, I was curious about the title of the morning class that you're teaching in San Francisco. And I was just so curious about it. And maybe just share with us what the title is, and then just kind of give us like what inspired that, because it isn't something I've seen quite often.
Yeah, it could be, it could create a lot of questions for sure. And so the body process on Sunday the 10th, the morning class will be it's called the elimination and eradication of demon-infested organs and restoration of life-inducing possibilities.
Okay, wait. All right, like we got to understand, like my audience, we may not have ever heard this term. So can you just say it slower and louder?
Oh, absolutely. And the elimination and eradication of demon-infested organs and restoration of life-inducing possibilities.
Oh, that sounds so good. I don't even know what it means, and it sounds good.
Right? And the cool thing is, like, there's over 40 different body processes. And when I create a class, I'll ask the class and also the area that I'm doing the class in, what body process would like to be facilitated here. And this was one of the ones that popped up. And this is how I kind of describe it. San Francisco, every place has its own energy, and every particular time it has, it may be asking for the whole area. And this one is what I might even call like a more quote unquote advanced, certainly not for the meek. It's a bigger, juicier body process that, and what's cool about these body processes is that they literally will release from the cellular and molecular level anything that we have trapped on that plane. And as you run these body processes, it starts to unlock. So anything that we've created a limitation on known and unknown. That's the thing, is we function from these limitations that we don't even know what they are. And sometimes that becomes more clear when you're having these body processes done or afterwards, and sometimes not. And it doesn't really matter, because either way, it's going to create more for the body, more possibilities, more choice, more awareness, and just getting out of the limitations that we have stored up and that we're creating our limited reality from.
Tell me a little bit about what working on this sort of stuff has done in your life. How has this kind of inspired or influenced you?
Well, some of the things I'm really aware of, and other things, as I said, can be released and you don't even know what that can unravel. But I did have this process run just the other day, and as well as run it on somebody. And it just, what you can experience is always going to be different for each body. And every time you run it, it can be different. But there was just, I'm trying to recall what I was aware of, that just places I was really stuck, lots of points of view, where even my organs were not functioning as highly as they could function from. So after I ran it, there was just so much more space and ease in my body, and then just more things just started showing up in my life. So it's kind of a broad description of it, but
Okay.
it just
I was just curious.
yeah.
So that was really fun. So Danielle, I don't want to have you leave coming on the podcast without mentioning the beautiful book that you participated in and the international bestseller in so many countries. Tell us a little bit about the book that you were in and your chapter.
Oh, yeah. So I was invited to write a chapter in the Possibilities in Parenting book that Sadie Rose was an editor of, and 18 other people were part of that. And she invited me to write a chapter on my daughter, Sophia, who is a special needs daughter with special gifts. And I always thought that I might write a book at some point. And when I was invited to write a chapter, I was like, oh, well, that feels easy and fun. And so I was delighted to tell my story and how Access consciousness tools played a part. And even before I came to Access, the awareness I did have. And my chapter is chapter 17 in the book, and it's called Welcome to Where. And it's, when you are anticipating a child into your life, there can be some expectations of what that might look like. And I was inspired by an article that's written and usually released every year by Dear Abby, about having a child's kind of like planning a trip to Italy and all your friends are doing it and you're all excited. And then when you have a special needs child that you weren't necessarily anticipating, you end up, it's like walking off the plane going, I'm in Holland? But I thought I was going to Italy. And
I know. Well, I just want to tell you that I appreciate that book and I appreciate your contribution so much. And we're running out of time, but what I'm going to do is I'll share the link to the book on the website, theerikaglessingshow.com. But I'm also going to share the link to sign up for your classes that are coming up both in Seattle and in San Francisco, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the second body process on Sunday in San Francisco, a lot of people will choose it as a whole day, but there is the option of half day, is the source field for the elimination and eradication of the chromatics of time. So that's really more focused on aging and how we age and how we can actually change that with this body process, which I personally like, given my background. And then the following Sunday, I'll be back in Seattle doing a body process class on the 17th of December. a Sunday as well.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. And I'm sorry we couldn't hear more, but we will definitely send people to read your entire beautiful chapter and take your classes. Thanks so much for coming.
Thanks, Erica. This was really a lot of fun.
Thank
Thanks for inviting me.